We're live.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this hackathon workshop for the Moonriver Grant Hackathon. Today, we are joined by Leilani Lettingham, Product Marketing Manager at Covalent. Leilani is a digital native with an interest in data and emerging technologies, and her involvement in the blockchain sector began with startups after she graduated from the University of British Columbia. And currently, she's focused on enabling new use cases in Web3 with the Covalent API. So you may already be familiar with Covalent, but if you're not, they're a very easy to use API that offers tons of data, but it's easy to use for developers, and it's very easy for you to integrate it into your application. So it's extremely relevant for the hackathon because we have a couple of different bounties, which are very closely aligned with what Covalent can help you with. So an example that that helps me understand how Covalent works is that let's say you want to query a user's balance of ERC20 tokens. Typically, you would need to say, well, which ERC20 token contracts would I like to check this user's balance for? So there are thousands and thousands of ERC20 token contracts. So you'd have to check every single one, and you'd have to see if there's a non-zero balance for any of those, and then aggregate all those. Instead, you could use Covalent, and you could make a single request, and you can get all of that information back. You let Covalent do all the hard work, and you get all this back with a single request, which is really, really cool. So turning to the Moonriver Grant Hackathon topics, I wanted to briefly introduce these bounties, and maybe if you haven't seen them already. So we have a bunch of judged bounty prizes. So that comprises $100,000 of the $150,000 prize pool, which is sponsored by the Moonbeam Foundation and our global strategic sponsor, who will be Incubator. And we also have the help of DoorHacks and Covalent and many different people putting on the hackathon and helping with the judging. So we're very glad for that. So NFTs and indexers comprise 24% of the total judged bounty prizes. And moving on to the bounty specifics. The first one that we have is an Nft Showcased App. So the idea behind this is that collecting NFTs individually is part of the fun, but it's also very fun to show off your NFTs, right? And it's not very user friendly if I just say, here's my address, go and try to look it up on a blockchain explorer, and maybe you can see some of my NFTs and maybe you can't. Maybe some of the image metadata is there, maybe some of them are missing, or maybe not displayed by this specific block explorer. And so instead of showing a link like mynfts.com/your address, you could show something that's a bit more user-friendly, such as a username. And so the idea is that you're supporting as many different collections as possible, as many different NFT collections that are on Moonriver, and so you can support as many as possible, and you can display relevant NFT metadata, supply, rarity, the different specific token IDs that you own, and things like that. So the first place prize for that is $7,000, and the runner-up prize is $2,500. And these are quite fun bounties. So if you're new to Web3, if you're new to NFTs, these are great options to check out. And we also have an NFT creation and deployment app. So the idea behind this is that you have users who are perhaps not super technical, but they want to be able to create NFTs easily. And so if you could build a nice seamless UI that makes it easy for users to upload images and specify different data such as rarity and that sort of thing. And also have a functionality for being able to transfer these NFTs via a web UI, because typically you don't want to just mint them and then keep them there, but you want to actually transfer them. And it would be awesome to be able to do it directly from the UI. And we think that the breakdown for this might be users might want to create like a one-off NFT. So you could have like a generic collection, and then you can just create a new NFT from that generic collection. But they also might want to create, a special run of 100 or 1,000 or many different NFTs, in which case you would want to deploy an individual contract just for that user. We also have an indexer's bounty. So this bounty is stackable. So you can build on top of another bounty and by using an indexer such as Covalent to provide a key piece of data in your application, you'll be eligible for this bounty. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Leilani.
Thank you. Great.
I'll just stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, no problem. I'll reference some of the bounties again, I think, during my portion of the presentation. But yeah, today we're going to go through Covalent a little bit, and then I'll show you actually how to use one of our templates to build an NFT collection dashboard. Before we do that, I'm just going to post some links in the chat, and then that way people can see what I'm doing now. Okay, cool. Let me just share. Here we go. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you, Kevin. That was a really nice intro. Today, as I mentioned, so we're going to go over a few Web3 data trends and challenges, just to give you the landscape of where Covalent sits and kind of the problems that we're aimed at solving. What is the Covalent API in just a little more detail, and then how to build your own dashboard, which you can follow along if you want to head to those links when we get there. You just need GitHub, which I'm assuming all of you probably have. And then some resources and project demos in case you're interested in looking any further or learning about what else you can build. So let's get into it. First of all, just to set the scene, I know the past year or two has been a really big year for crypto. We've seen a lot of new entrants in the market. And just, we always like to come back to where we are on the adoption curve, just to understand like what infrastructure really still needs to be built, and the need for hackathons like these and a lot of innovation that is happening in the space. So, so many more brands are getting into NFTs, as we've seen, but also even brands like Visa and PayPal are expressing interest in crypto. Recently, Stripe adding crypto support, and even governments. So with that, that's exposing this whole ecosystem to millions more users, maybe billions at some point. But we're still really early. And I know not just early in like a profit sense, but early in the state of technology itself. And there's a lot to go in terms of the UX and UI to support actual mainstream users. So I think we'll get to a point at some point where you won't know that you're using something on a blockchain, or you won't know that something uses crypto. And that ultimately is at a good place to be, because that's where we're actually kind of mainstream, and the average person, like your parents or your grandparents, might even be integrated somehow in Web3 and not even know it. So hackathons like these are really useful for exploring those use cases. But just in a couple of years at Covalent, we already kind of envision, I think this is actually billions more pieces of information on blockchains. As we've seen, it's definitely a multi-chain ecosystem that we're in now, far from just Ethereum. And it's really exciting to see the different use cases and the different kind of audiences for different blockchains. So yeah, we picture dozens of those. I actually think it'll be hundreds, because there already are, and that includes private blockchains, which we might not even take into account as a developer in this ecosystem, and lots of applications built on top of these, again supporting a way larger user base. So where does that kind of leave us? One of the problems that we see that's already occurring, and you might have noticed this, it still can be kind of clunky to move between chains or to fetch data from different places, especially since the underlying architecture of blockchains isn't always the same. So we have the EVM standard that Ethereum has created that a lot of blockchains use, but we're also seeing more non-EVMs pop up, like Solana, for instance, and getting data when you have assets on Ethereum and assets on Solana, and aggregating that in a way that's clean, that you can move across different applications, is really challenging. So all of that boils down to data interoperability. I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg of kind of problems that we'll face with that, because everyone is kind of building in silos to some extent, and we need to find ways of extracting the data in a meaningful way that can be standardized and then used broadly, so that people building applications aren't just limited to one chain. So that's something that we're really focused on at Covalent. And the other thing is just the sheer amount of data that blockchains produce, and kind of how disorganized it is. So blockchains are public, the data is public, But if you have any experience extracting it, you know that it can be kind of difficult and there are barriers. Some of those are cost, some of those are technical knowledge. So the other thing that we're focused on is removing the barriers so that anybody can really query and access blockchain data. And that could be even people that are non-technical. So something that we recently added to our documentation, recently as in like, I guess, past couple months, but is in analyst mode. So we're seeing a lot more use cases for people that just want to analyze things that have happened that they might have seen on crypto Twitter, for instance. So recently, I guess people are familiar with the Ronin exploit that just occurred. And if you wanted to, like a journalist wanting to write a news article, for instance, on that, we want to make that data accessible. So through analyst mode, you can actually export all of our blockchain data into Excel format. So that's something that's really familiar. Why change the thing that millions of people across the world already know how to use is kind of how we see it. So again, just focused on making data interoperable through standardizing it, and then also useful in different ways. So right now it's an Excel sheet. Possibly later on, we'll explore different plugins that you can use so that you could import that straight into business intelligence tools, for instance, or things like that. But of course, the standard response is a JSON response, which is primarily used by developers. So what is the Covalent API exactly? Basically, what we provide is a single unified API, which just means that you can use the same API to query data across all different blockchains that we index. We just index Harmony, so I think that bumps us up to 30 blockchains now that we currently support. And you can see all of that in the API reference page on the drop-down menu. If you click, I think where the default is Ethereum, all of the other chains will pop down. But it's queryable from the cloud. You don't need to code. So you can actually test all the endpoints live in the browser. And then you can fill in those parameters in the browser as well if you are non-technical. But if you are, you can expand upon that. And then, yeah, the main kind of, I guess, advantage to all of this is just enabling those multi-chain capabilities. So because of the structure of Covalent and the way that our data pipeline is set up, we aggregate all blockchain data in a single place that is all standardized, which means you can aggregate data across chains. You can switch your project across any chains we support just by changing a single parameter. So that's really the main advantage, aside from speed and ease to use, which can be ideal for hackathons like this one. So this is kind of how we break down the crypto stack and where we fit in it. So you have the blockchains that are kind of the foundation where all of the data is stored. Developers can read and write to the blockchain through smart contracts. The activity that enables you to do that is nodes. So nodes are where you would extract the blockchain data, but that can be kind of a complicated step or an unnecessary step that some people want to take if they are just focused on building applications. So what we do is just kind of provide that data layer, and we do that through the API. So what that means is instead of you having to run your own nodes and kind of do all the legwork and setup for your projects, we just provide all of that data in a single place that's queryable through the API. And we find that that saves a lot of time, money, complications for all of the users. And in our view, that is kind of how we accelerate adoption in terms of focusing more on the applications and just less things slowing people down, essentially. So some of those applications that you can see are like charts, analytics are a big use case, applications, NFT galleries, wallets, as Kevin mentioned, are balances endpoint that allows you to query all the token balances, including NFTs in any wallet across those chains. That's our number one endpoint. And that can be really useful for other things like taxation, for instance, which a lot of people don't think about, but that is quite a big emerging field that we're going to have to deal with as regulations change. And yeah, so all of those applications, I mean, we think there's a lot of unknown unknowns and things that we haven't even thought of. There's certainly new trends in this ecosystem all the time. And with the metaverse and everything, you never know, like, what people are going to come up with in terms of AR collaborations or, automation, wearable stuff. Yeah, there's tons of use cases that we don't know. We really just provide the data, and then it's up to users to create their own applications and change the world that way. So as I've kind of broken this down, but these are our two main demographics. So crypto developers, and now expanding this to more Web2 developers. So we've seen a big migration from even FANG companies into this space, or not FANG companies, but their employees. And a lot more developers are curious about learning about the Web3 stack, which can be kind of intimidating. So we're focused on making that a little bit easier as well. And then analysts, so people that want to analyze all of the events that are happening in this space, and then create possibly those onboarding tools or more information for everybody else to benefit from. Currently, we have over 15,000 developers, over 500 projects built with us. So because the API is free, it's a little bit hard to track all of these because we consider hackathon projects, but also big projects that you might have heard of, some of the ones listed below. But the API is the same for everybody. So you can actually replicate a lot of these applications yourself. It tends to be less complicated than people think. We gave a separate presentation with Moonbeam a couple weeks ago on how to replicate something like OpenSea using the Covalent API, as well as Xerion or Zapper. So I think if you can find that later, maybe I'll post the link, you can reference that as well. But yeah, these are just, some of the projects that we're fortunate to work with. And yeah, excited to see that grow even more. So relevant bounties in terms of this hackathon, I guess you could actually use it for, I just have the indexers bounty on here because that's kind of our main field, because we are a blockchain indexer. But if you are going after any of the NFT bounties as well, I think Covalent has great NFT endpoints that you can use to display metadata or market data or anything that you want to display in those applications. We are a read-only API, if I didn't say that. So that's the main function, but we can support you in other bounties for sure. And I just have the link there again, if anyone wants to go check those out. I should have probably posted that in the chat, but I will later. So yeah, let's get into it. So building your own NFT collection dashboard. So something that we recently started doing is creating more use case like templates for developers primarily to use, but we're probably going to expand that, but just making it easier for people to get started on certain builds that have a couple of our core endpoints built in. And then that way you could take those templates and you could expand on them. Or if you're a beginner, you could simply just follow along and create it. And it might be your first sort of application. So what we started with was an NFT collection dashboard. And I'm going to show you, I think I just have to share a different tab, but oops. There we go. I'm going to show you one that I've made just for a Moonbeam collection because it's kind of relevant. And then here, maybe I'll just share this window and then I can switch between. Sorry, you're going to see the screen for a second. Okay, here we go. Oh no, that's the Polygon one. There we go. Okay, let me just double check. Everyone can see this, right? The Moonbeam Punks dashboard.
Got it.
Okay, good. So yeah, this is something that we're going to replicate today. So we index or we support 8 different chains through the NFT market data endpoints, which are the ones that are underlying this code template. And if you follow the links that I posted in the chat, the NFT dashboard template will take you here. And this is what we're going to be using. So the instructions for this are actually all in the README as well. So if you wanted to come back to it anytime, you could just follow these. It's really only a couple steps, but I'm just going to show you how to replicate something like this and what the dashboard template actually looks like. So basically, it's just kind of like a customizable storefront almost that has some analytics for any NFT collection that you would like to display across like Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche, Phantom, Moonbeam, Moonriver, Arbitrum, and I think Sheetan is on there as well. So what it displays is collection address, ticker symbol, and then some statistics from our market data endpoints. So this can be the recently sold and the 24-hour volume and a graph of floor prices. You can also adjust those across different date ranges. And then it also fetches the first 5 NFTs for any collection. So if you click on those, you can actually, well, now it's not going to load, but you can actually get a preview of the metadata. Well, if it loads, just being slow. Classic when I'm doing a presentation. But yeah, so I'll show you how we can replicate this. So you're gonna want to go to the NFT dashboard template on GitHub, and then a couple things that you'll need is just the contract address of whatever collection that you're interested in making the dashboard for. So in this case, I just went to Tofu NFT Marketplace and pulled up this collection, and then I searched the contract, which took me to Subscan. So you'll just want to have something like this. I find it's useful to just start on the marketplace, and then that way you can also use any of these images that you want for the backgrounds. So as you can see in the dashboard template, the colors are kind of changed, and I have like a somewhat punk in the background. You could make a custom banner as well, but if you even just like copy and save an image URL, which I'll show you, it'll just kind of make it fit the collection that you're interested in. So the first thing you want to do is click use this template, and then you're just going to name it. So I'm just going to call this, actually, I'm just going to call this Moonbeam Punks, and then just click include all branches. Yeah, we're looking at getting rid of that as well, but for right now there's 2 branches, so you want to make sure you include those. It's going to take a couple seconds to just generate your own repo. And here we go. So the first thing to do is to go to your settings, and then go to pages. So Github Pages is actually where the site is deployed. And once you create the repository, you're going to get a URL here like this. And you just want to copy that because we're going to update the homepage setting. So you find this in the package file, and then you're going to edit. And right where it says homepage, I'm just going to replace the default URL with the one from my GitHub Pages like this. And I'm just going to commit it. You don't really need to write a message or anything like that. It's all just automatic. And we're just making small changes. And again, all of this is in the README if I'm going too fast or anything. And then all of the rest of your changes are going to be in this SRC folder here. So this is where we're going to customize things like the background and the title, and the contract address. So you go to config, and you can see all of those parameters here. So if I edit, I'm going to just want to replace the contract address with the one that I found on either the Marketplace or the Explorer. It's the same one. Just a tip for some chains, it tends to be better to just find the token on the Block Explorer, especially on Ethereum for some reason, because OpenSea, when it says go to contract, sometimes it's not the correct one for the collection. So just be careful and double check. But if you do it and it doesn't show up, then you'll obviously know that it's probably not the right contract. So yeah, I've copied that, and now I'm just gonna paste it in here. And the next part is the chain ID. So that's just where the ID of the blockchain where this collection lives. So this one's on Moonbeam, for example, and all of the supported chains are actually listed right here. So you can just reference this. The chain ID for Moonbeam is 1284. And you can also see all of those in our API reference page. So when you drop down on the list of supported blockchains, or if you're going through our docs, there's multiple places where it'll show you both the chain, what's supported, and the chain ID. So I'm just going to call this Punks dashboard. And then this banner picture is where I was talking about just copying a background image. You could make this a lot prettier, but if you really want to do it in like 5 minutes just to get started, as I've done and as I always pretty much do, you can just copy an image address from any of the chains that you're interested in, and that will just set like the background color and kind of customize the dashboard interface. So this one's kind of cute. I'm going to use this. So yeah, I'm just copying the image address. I know it's kind of funny because it's a little bit like just right-click saving, but it's not the same. So I'm going to input that right here. And yeah, then I'm just going to commit. Again, I don't really need to specify anything or do anything else. So that's actually all of the necessary changes that you need to make to do the setup. And you can just see all of this being built here. Oopsie, what is this one? Okay, well, it's still going to wait a little bit. So this is the longest portion of building the template, essentially. It's just waiting for the actions to deploy. So this typically takes a couple minutes. And then again, if you were to really expand on the template and build more, it's going to take a little longer. But yeah, the basic changes will just take a couple minutes, and then you will be able to redirect to that page and look something like this. And I'll come back to it, but just while we wait, I thought I'd go over some of our resources. So here's just an example of what we did in the slides as well. But the two primary resources to learn about Covalent, or if you're using us for this hackathon, are to go to our doc site or our API reference. So this is what our doc site looks like. This is where you're going to find all of the information on supported blockchains, Primer, which is another developer tool that you can use to further filter the API response, things like match functions, etc. And then you also have an overview of everything I just kind of talked about in this presentation. So yeah, if you did expand any of these sidebars, you can see what I'm talking about. So if I wanted to go to Moonriver, for instance, I could understand a little bit more about the chain, what the chain ID is, and all of this kind of other details. And you can actually try some of the endpoints live. So these are taken from our API reference page, which looks like this. This is covalenthq.com/docs. This is covalenthq.com/docs/API. But yeah, those links are in the chat. And what you'll see on the API page is this dropdown that I've mentioned a few times, which shows all the index blockchains and their chain IDs. And a couple other things you can customize up here, like the response currency, also the mode that you're going to be using it in. So developer mode, which is the default, just returns a JSON response for any of the API endpoints. Analyst mode, which turns things in a spreadsheet format that a lot of people are familiar with. And to use all of this, you just sign up for a API key on the main website, which is free and it takes about a minute. So yeah, our class A endpoints, just to expand a little bit more, these are kind of batched into categories. So going back to that wallet and balances or anything that you want to know about a particular user on a blockchain, those are all grouped together in the kind of balances endpoints here. So this is our most popular one, which is to get token balances for any address, supports ERC20, 721, and 1155. And yeah, you can get like token holders of a blockchain, or sorry, of a token, and interactions that way. You can expand and get transactions for a certain address. And then if you are looking at any of those NFT bounties, these are NFT endpoints. So the template that I've just showed you uses primarily these two, get NFT market global view, and then get historical data for a particular collection. So you can get historical floor prices, volume, sales, and the market global view is actually like an aggregated market cap across different chains, which is kind of unique because we're in a position to aggregate that data again, since we standardize everything. And you could also display metadata. So all of those images are actually coming directly from the API. And yeah, if you want to try any of these balances, or sorry, any of these endpoints, you just click run in the API reference and it will show you the response. We actually batch them. So if you expand, this is what the JSON response looks like typically. So you can see this for this particular wallet, which is just demo.eth that it defaults to. You can change all of these in the custom requests. But yeah, for this particular wallet, you can see different balances of different tokens that are in it, along with some other information like the quote rate. And then if you select NFT data for any address, it will also show you that way. And just to give you a quick look at what analyst mode looks like, if you switch to analyst mode, you see this in a spreadsheet. So I believe there's a little bug with one of the exports right now, so we're fixing that. But you can also import this directly into Excel. And if you didn't want to click it from the docs, if you are working in Excel, if that's your like strength, you just do equals import data and then brackets the API request. And then these are our class B endpoints. So what class B endpoints are just anything protocol specific. So for different dexes, I would recommend looking at the XY = K endpoints because that is kind of the underlying equation for most exchanges on different blockchains. And you can see Moonbeam, for instance. Beam Swap and Stella Swap you can query through here, and you can get information like pools, supported dexes, like, yeah, transactions for certain tokens on those exchanges. And yeah, you can feel free to explore this on your own time. I'm only curious about what this issue is with this one, but okay, well, I hope that demo works. Otherwise, I can take you to a different one. But yeah, as you can see, everything's built. So the background image is different because I changed that. And then maybe we're just gonna have to deal with long loading times right now. Classic. There we go. So yeah, you'll see it's the same API request as the one we already made. So the previews look the same, but you can explore the collections that way. And then just I forgot to mention before, if you go to global view, which is built into any of the templates, you can actually see all the different collections on a particular chain ranked by their market cap. You can adjust these columns to rank it by whatever parameters you want. So like the 24-hour volume, for instance, the number of transactions, even the number of wallets that hold that NFT, like an ID from that collection. And then the preview images for what it looks like as well. So not all collections will have preview images. That's just, yeah, some of them don't, but a lot of them do. And you can switch between all of the different supported chains for the template here. So if I wanted to see Phantom, for instance, yeah, you can see there's a lot fewer previews on Phantom or Ethereum. Yeah. So the market cap for Rarible is extremely, extremely large. I just want to point this out because it is technically accurate. It's just kind of complicated because anybody can go in and mint like a token through the Rarible contract. And so it just gets really inflated, but technically there's nothing we can really do about that. So yeah, this is hopefully a useful tool for people to explore, or at least to get started, or maybe give you some info if you want to build something similar. You can actually find more of our templates on the Covalent Replit. So I can post a link to that later on. But yeah, I hope this is useful for people to get started and an overview of Covalent. And if you have any other specific questions, I know I'll take some right now, but if you have some that I can't answer, for instance, we'll have some Discord support ongoing through the hackathon too with a couple of members from our team, or you can join the Covalent Discord and get support that way too. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Leilani. So as you can see, this is a huge head start. I mean, looking at this project right now, right? I mean, you can go in and you can get started with this template. And I mean, it almost feels like you're halfway there towards an NFT marketplace. I mean, you can't use the same like template, but you can see how the technology is used, and you can see how the product is built and how the API requests are made. I mean, this is incredibly helpful. Thank you so much. And if anybody has any questions, you can ask them in the chat box, and we also have like an ask a question box at the bottom. And I'm sure Leilani will post the Discord link for Covalent. And we also have the Discord link for Moonbeam is discord.gg/Moonbeam. We have a new Hackathons channel, but feel free to ask your questions anywhere. It doesn't have to be just the Hackathons channel.
Yeah, let me find my Replit link too in the meantime for us. Not a questioning bunch today. It's kind of nice, actually.
We have great turnout, though. I'm so happy to see everyone here.
Yeah, for coming out. It might not be as early as it is for us, but what are you most excited about for this hackathon, or which bounties?
So I think the NFT ones I think are probably the most fun. We're excited to see like what people do with the XCM one. That's kind of like our grand prize. So we'll have a workshop on that tomorrow. That's probably the most like complex. I think that the goal of the hackathon is we're trying to like offer as many like bounties as we can, but also keep it open-ended enough so that anybody can work on whatever they want. So we have like a first, second, third place general prize, and then a full $50,000 is allocated towards the door hacks matching pool through quadratic funding. So anybody can submit anything, and then the community can vote. And yeah, it's decentralized in that approach.
Nice, yeah. I actually yesterday evening saw a talk by Annika Lewis from Gitcoin, and she was talking all about quadratic funding. It was really interesting. Definitely going to look into that more. But it's a great way to like expand the power of people in Web3 and their votes. I see one question: will it support mobile, web, iOS, Android? Yeah, people build mobile applications and embed the API for things like displaying the balances or the NFT metadata. So yeah.
Cool. Well, if nobody has any more questions, I think we can wrap up, and we'll have a replay available here, like 10 minutes after the presentation, and we'll also post it on the Moonbeam Network YouTube channel.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Leilani.
Oh, thanks for having me. Thanks everyone for coming out as well, and good luck with everything you're building. Yeah, can't wait to see it and follow along.